And welcome back to Backspace Academy. In this lecture on continuous integration and continuous delivery, we're going to be creating a CICD pipeline using AWS CodePipeline. First off, we're going to be creating an elastic beanstalk, highly available and fault-tolerant environment for deploying our Node.js web application. Once we've done that, we're going to create a GitHub repository that is going to contain our Node.js application. And we're going to integrate between that GitHub repository and our elastic beanstalk environment so that whenever we change that code in the GitHub repository, it will automatically update and deploy our changes to that environment. Our AWS CodePipeline will consist of a number of sub-processes. We will start off with our source code, and in this lab, it will be located in a GitHub repository. It could also be located in an AWS code commit repository, which is AWS's implementation of Git. It could be in an Amazon S3 bucket, or it could also be a Docker image in the Elastic Container Registry as well. Once we've done that, we can build our application using AWS Code Build or a number of other different build environments. Once our application has been built, we can then test it, and we can use a number of different environments to do that as well. Once we've tested it and it's passed that staging with testing, it can then go on to be a production deployment. And so we would use AWS Code Deploy, or in this lab, we're going to be using a direct deployment to Amazon or AWS Elastic Beanstalk environment. Now for this lab, we're just going to be going from our source and integrating that with our production environment, which we're going to create on Elastic Beanstalk, which will be a highly available and fault-tolerant architecture there for deploying that Node.js web application. And we're just going to integrate that with our GitHub repository so that when we make changes to our GitHub repository, they will be automatically pushed through to our deployed environment. Now, the first thing that we need to do is that we need to get hold of this Node.js code that we're going to be using to deploy on this Elastic Beanstalk environment. So what we need to do is go to the Backspace Academy site and go to this AWS Node.js Elastic Beanstalk sample application that I've created here. And what you want to do is just star it and fork it. And that will fork it into your GitHub repository. Now, once that's done, what I want you to do now is just download that. And so we just download that zip file. Okay, so once that's downloaded, we can see here that all of our code is located inside of a directory. So that's no good for us. So what we need to do is that we need to have our repository look like that. We can't have all of our files hidden inside a folder there. So what we need to do is first of all extract this. Okay, so that's unzipped, and we'll just open that up now. Before we re-zip this and upload it to our Elastic Beanstalk environment, I want to actually change the background of this web page so that when we first deploy it, it has, for example, a blue background. And then when we integrate our GitHub repository with this Elastic Beanstalk environment and we make any changes there, we can see that the color has actually changed. So what we'll do is we're going to our static directory here. We go into app and CSS, and we're going to open up this app.css. Okay, so there we can see the background color is lime, and I'm just going to change that to light sky blue. And I'll just save that. So what we can do now is that we can zip everything back up again. So we make sure that we don't have everything hidden here in a directory. We have it all looking like this, and then we can just zip all that up. and that will be fine. So that is our package there, app.zip, that we're going to upload to our Elastic Beanstalk environment. So just very quickly, before we jump on to the Elastic Beanstalk part of the lab, just want to talk about some of the files that are here. So what we've got here is an .eb extensions, and that is where we put our configurations that we want to add or we want Elastic Beanstalk to read. So let's have a look at that. So just open that up and we'll have a look at, or just have a look at this options.config. And here we can see that we've got some options that are available or that we want to pass through to Elastic Beanstalk. So the first one there is that we've got the environment variable for AWS region. So what that means is that Elastic Beanstalk will deploy this deployment environment to a region, and our application is not going to know what region it actually is in. So if we're using the software development kit, part of that initialization process of the software development kit is that you will need to tell the software development kit exactly what region you are operating in. So this is a great way to do it because you can just have that environment variable, and we'll have a look at that in the code in a second. And we can have Elastic Beanstalk pass that to your application as an environment variable. The next thing we want to do is we want to tell Elastic Beanstalk that it's going to be a Node.js application, and it's going to be using the Nginx web server to deploy this. And it's going to be proxying static files that will be located in a static folder there. So our Node.js application won't actually be delivering the static files, so the pictures and libraries and all this sort of stuff. They'll be delivered directly by the Nginx web server. So let's jump into the actual code. So we go back to the main area here. And if we go to app.js and have a look at that, okay, so you can see what's going on here. So first of all, we're loading that AWS software development kit. Now, if you're not a developer, don't worry too much about this. You can still kind of understand what's going on. But part of this, when we use the AWS software development kit, we need to tell it what region we're in. So there's aws.config.region, and we're referencing a process environment variable called region, and that is what is passed from the Elastic Beanstalk service. And there we can see it's just a standard Node.js Express web application. If you're a developer, you would have seen something like this numerous times. So without further ado, let's jump into Elastic Beanstalk and start deploying this. Okay, starting off in the management console, we go to Services, Elastic Beanstalk, and we create a new application, top right hand corner here. We'll give our application a name, and create. Okay, so our application has been created. We just need to create the environment now. So we go to Actions and Create Environment. We want to create a web server environment. We'll leave the environment name as it is. Our platform is going to be Node.js. And we're going to be uploading our own code. So we click on Upload and we'll select for our local file for that. Okay, so after 5 minutes or so, we have our Elastic Beanstalk environment up and running. And we can check that everything's fine by clicking on the environment URL. So we'll just click on that now, and we can see there we have a Node.js web application, and it has a light sky blue background, which we defined in our CSS file. So coming up next, what we're going to do now is that we're going to link a GitHub repository to this Elastic Beanstalk environment using AWS CodePipeline. So I look forward to seeing you in that one.